Joining me for an overview on tax policy with a Trump or Biden win in the U.S. national election is Ken Van Llewellyn, Managing Director and founder of Van Llewellyn and Company. Ken, it's great to have you with us. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Great to be with you, Jill. Thanks for having me.
You got it. And it's been hard to discern much of what Trump's policy strategy is with taxes. I don't recall him publicly pushing an agenda for the next 4 years. Do you expect more of the same if he wins?
Um, well, you're correct. He hasn't talked at all about a tax policy. So we're anticipating some of the same. I guess the question is, right, we're looking at that we believe regardless of who wins, we're going to get an infrastructure package. So, and how do we pay for that is going to become, a big deal, I think, in the new Congress. Of course, depending on, are we going to get a Democratic Senate or a Republican Senate?
Well, Ken, it's interesting. I scripted this out on Friday, October 9th, in advance of the interview today. And one
Right.
of my questions was, do you think Trump will revisit healthcare reform? And he addressed that in a tweet this afternoon. So, that has been addressed, but not much has happened over the past 4 years. And that was one of the things he campaigned on in 2016. So do you think if he gets reelected that we'll see any kind of reform?
Yeah, I clearly do. I think that, because I think with his Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett, I think that that's an integral part of this strategy because, if she gets approved, I think the Supreme Court could definitely rule the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare unconstitutional. So that's what we're looking at too. So I think Trump will have to come with his own proposal.
All right, let's go back and talk stimulus again. How is this deficit going to be addressed?
Well, the real question is, yes, I think we're going to get stimulus, right? I think what now both parties are trying to figure out as they get closer to election is how can they make it both look positive for each other, right? I think that, Trump just raised his ante to 1.8 trillion, excuse
Sure.
me, the other day. And I think, of course, the Democrats would like a little bit more. But now how do they both look good is really, I think, the big key thing that they'd like to get to, with X amount of days left before the election, clearly.
Let's shift gears and talk about Biden. And of course, the question there is what happens if there is an increase in capital gains tax? Does that impact stocks, the markets?
Well, it's really interesting because there is a school of thought, right? There are a bunch of gains, especially in the technology area. And as we know, September was a tough month from a market perspective. Did we see gains in the technology stocks? Because we definitely saw Apple pulling back, Google, Facebook. Now, of course, they're on the rise again. So did we get our selling then? Because now it seems that they're on the way back. But we are clearly seeing other stock groups beginning to start to go to the fore, like, for example, some of our retailers, like our Walmarts and our Targets and our Costco's, they're all doing very well. So are we starting to see leadership shift a little bit from the stock perspective? Because people have taken their gains and now they're putting their money in areas that they think have just as good a chance to work.
It's interesting. It's almost like the market is pricing in a stimulus bill, whether it happens in the near term or whether it happens with a new administration in January or February. It's like the market knows that a stimulus package is coming on. It's just a matter of when. So again, back to how are we going to pay all of this back? Do you think Biden will look to corporate tax changes to alleviate
Um,
that?
yeah, it's pretty much that he has said that we're going to get a corporate tax increase. I think that that's going to be a centerpiece. Again, remember, it's how the Senate goes in this election, right? That's still somewhat up for grabs. If we get the Senate keeps control, the Republicans keep control of the Senate, I think we will see a little bit more of a fight on their hands, the Democrats, if Biden's elected. But I definitely see a rise in corporate taxes coming to be able to pay for this. And then, of course, we're going to see a rise probably in people who, are in that top 1%, as the Democrats like to refer to that, and, tax them again. Go back to that old marginal rate of 39.6%.
And what about infrastructure spend? I would imagine Biden will certainly come out with something around that.
I think, well, that's part of the whole, one of the tenets of his presidency, right, is this infrastructure, but the Green New Deal that they're talking about. And yeah, that's going to have to be funded and paid for as well. So we definitely see that happening. What it looks like, we don't exactly know, but remember, that progressive wing of the Democratic Party, that's what they advocated, the Bernie Sanders group of folks. So, to spend that money because it would create jobs and eventually the economy would start to benefit with that. Trump, I don't think, is so on the side of the green part, but I think that was a hallmark of the beginning of Trump's presidency, as we remember, right? He
Hmm.
wanted infrastructure too. And I think we're going to see that. How they're going to pay for it, it's anybody's guess right now. So it's got to come from somewhere. And Trump's silence on tax policy, to me, Jill, is a little bit concerning.
It certainly is. And to go back to your point that the Green Deal would create new jobs, it's not only creating the jobs for the task at hand, these are the kinds of jobs that are the economy of the future, right? So it also sets up workers for the proper training that they need. I don't see how anyone could be opposed to it with the, outside of spending and so forth, but this is what sets up American workers for the new economy.
Well, I think, and you're totally right on with that. I think because one of the things we're seeing, right, that which is a good thing because it's going to shift workers back into those new types of jobs, whether it's solar, whether it's wind power. All people will have to be trained in those new areas, and they'll make it much more appealing for all of us, even consumers, to engage and to use those kind of power sources.
Mhm.
I mean, I think California, I believe, said in 2035, every new car there is going to have to be an electric vehicle. So that in itself is pretty momentous. I think just that whole focus there. So yeah, the workers will have to retain, and we will benefit hopefully.
Yep, certainly. Hopefully, that's for sure, Ken. All right, great to speak with you as always. Thanks for joining me on Trade Talks.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.